As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more.
Let's move on, guys. Let's talk about Google. This one was interesting. The headline here: Google allegedly considered buying Epic Games to silence antitrust complaints. So, everyone knows back in 2018, there was this spat over Fortnite on the Play Store. Obviously, the spat continued with Apple and everyone else. But Epic didn't want to pay the 30% cut to the Google Play Store, so they wanted to, let people sideload Fortnite on Android. It went, became a legal battle. And one of the ways Google was considering resolving this legal battle was basically just to buy Epic. I love this story because it's one of these tin hat things where, we can put our tinfoil hats on and speculate what the world might be like had Google bought Epic Games. Does anyone have sort of a thought on how the world might be different today, how the gaming industry might be different today if in 2018 Google had managed to buy Epic? And second part of the question, if anyone wants to tackle it, is Epic potentially still up to be bought? Like, meaning, could it potentially still be an acquisition? They're not public, or are they too big at this point?
They could be bought. I mean, even public companies get bought by other public companies, right? I think they're an attractive acquisition, actually, to businesses of a certain size and scale. I think if you think of the big social media, Facebook, Google, Apple, I think all of those companies would be interesting acquirers of major game studios. I think Netflix would be, I don't know if Netflix has the market cap to do it, but I think they might be an interesting purchaser. Of course these guys can get bought. And there are businesses that might have real strategic impetus to buy them. That being said, I think it's unlikely they're bought at this stage, right? Like, we don't have really a track record of large game makers getting acquired. It seems pretty rare. If they are acquired, they're typically acquired. If game makers are acquired, they're typically acquired by other game makers, right? Who are trying to eat up the IP and consolidate. And Epic's too big to get bought by any other game maker out there. Even I think like the Activision Blizzards and things of the world, I don't think they would make a purchase there. So I think it's unlikely that they're acquired. But, I wouldn't be surprised to see headlines about it, because they're a very attractive asset with an interesting portfolio that would be very complementary.
The only way I think they would get bought is if there's some sort of reason why Tencent has to sell, and then it becomes Tencent owns whatever 40%, or have maybe, I don't know how much they own. Tim Sweeney is the majority shareholder, so he kind of holds the cards. He strikes me as someone who wants to go public and build an empire, and like, he's not necessarily looking to go work for Bobby Kotick or something. So I don't think he's personally a seller. But if Tencent, if the U.S. government or the Chinese government forces Tencent to divest that stake, that could lead to a sale. But yeah, I mean, this is, I come at this from the Stadia angle. Like, I think people are looking at this from the mobile, or at least this article seemed to phrase this in the mobile sense. But it would have been very interesting, and I think we would have a very different perception of Google's ambitions in gaming and Stadia's potential future if Google had plugged down, let's be honest, in 2018, they probably would have had to spend $15 billion probably.
That was Epic's valuation at the time. So
yeah,
so
maybe 20, 25.
Yeah.
Now it's, they'd have to pay 60 or 75 billion, which is
40 or 50, maybe, probably.
Fair. I think 40 or 50 is what they're probably worth in an IPO. So if they're going to sell, it might even be more than that. But tomato. I think if this move happens in 2018 and they make Fortnite exclusive to Stadia or really integrate that with Stadia, we might be having a very different conversation about Stadia, about Google's ambitions in gaming, and just the overall ecosystem. It would have been very interesting.
That, or they ruin Fortnite, they ruin gaming. Yeah. PUBG continues its path. Apex has an even bigger launch, right? We're assuming that they do well with Fortnite, which is a big if. But I liked everything else you said, Jeff. I was following it.
I mean, let me ask a different question here on this. Epic and Google here, like one of the reasons Google was considering this is because, at least the way this article is framed, is they were worried about this legal battle, right? This antitrust complaint against Google. And antitrust complaints, historically for big, monolithic companies like Google, can be very damaging. They're not necessarily that easy to win. And so clearly, when you're looking at spending $20 billion to make a legal battle go away, you obviously are doing some math that says, this is a real potential risk to our business. Is anyone here surprised that Apple did not do that same math at all, right? Like they were perfectly fine going to battle, whereas Google evidently considered a solution that would have cost them, like Jeff said, at least $20 billion at the time.
I'm kind of new to this, but doesn't that all depend on what type of resources you have? Because Apple does have the most liquid capital of any of these companies. So they have the cash on hand to actually.
It's not like Google doesn't.
No, I know, but it's different when you have it actually in liquid versus Apple, because Apple has never really pursued like a big acquisition type strategy. So they just have like piles of cash that they kind of sit with, whereas Google is constantly looking to expand, to grow. Not that Apple isn't, but Google has, I guess, a wider berth of interests. Like Apple is pretty focused. So for Apple, it's like, no, we're going to kind of stick with what we do. And Google's more like, well, maybe we can dig ourselves out by like just picking up another thing.
I mean, it's a good point, Lindsay. I think, but like Google being the $1 trillion company that it is, like even just raising 60 billion or 50 billion or for like getting access to that amount of capital, even if it's not sitting in a treasury, like in cash, is pretty easy for companies.
Does anyone else find it like ironic that in order to prove you're not a monopoly, you're basically like going out and squashing like a bug this little competitor? It's like, yeah, this is a great idea. Like this will prove that we're not an evil monopoly. Let's go kill this company.
That's what I mean.
Well, like, not kill it. We're buying them. Come on, right. It's so much fun.
In that world where they buy Epic Games, then maybe that doesn't work out. They're like, we need to buy more studios, and then we live in a world where everything is cloud gaming and everyone's suffering, and the world is in mass protest. It would be awful.
I like Jimmy M's, very, very negative view of this, very dystopian view.
It'd be very scary. I think.
There is a chance that would have killed Stadia on the spot, though, right? I think Jimmy B's point was, you put a bunch of garbage with garbage, probably still end up with garbage.
And they
would have killed Fortnite, not Stadia. Stadia was already dead. It would have killed Fortnite.
I mean, if you made Fortnite exclusive to Stadia, that probably would have also killed Fortnite, I would think.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
Right? Like if you go as far as to say, hey, the only place you can play Fortnite's on Stadia.